Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining today and welcome to our April workshop, Raising Your Visibility on LinkedIn. I'm really excited about this one. Today, I'm going to share my approach to how I have simplified my own experience and professional skills and accomplishments and tried to build a personal brand on LinkedIn. Like with every session, my goal is to make this very easy and consumable. So we're going to run through this workshop in just about 25 minutes, and we'll leave you with the recording and resources. But before you dive in, why should you listen to me? Who am I? Well, I'm Lauren, and I've been in your shoes before. I've been an independent consultant now for over 10 years. And across the last 5, I've grown from just a business of 1 to growing our consulting firm, Keen & Reed Strategies, to about 15 consultants. And we've done that primarily through referrals and through my own personal network. What I have found, especially true in the last year, is that your digital presence, and specifically your presence on LinkedIn, can be either a credibility booster or a credibility killer. All right. That is the digital address for your professional life. And so it's important that that place reflect you, what you bring to a client, and your unique experiences and what you can offer. Right. I will admit, though, for a long time, I really avoided LinkedIn. So if we can move to the next slide. I love Austin Powers, but I hate LinkedIn. It's true. I want to admit that I, for a long time, avoided LinkedIn. And for me, it was very painful. All right. And it was painful for a couple of reasons. The first is that I just find it really hard to simplify my own professional experience and skills and accomplishments into something that's very easily digestible, that hopefully is somewhat likable, and it's a reflection of what I would bring. It's just hard to do that for yourself. And I will say, even if my special superpower in this world is making things simple for other people, it's practically impossible to do that for yourself. Okay. So I know that. That's pain point 1. 2, I find the feed of LinkedIn and the humble brag really hard to stomach. And I don't know if it's because there's kind of a certain way people have decided they're going to talk on it, or it's just certain people who are opting into the platform. For me, it never felt like a really friendly, warm, and welcoming place where I'd want to spend time. And so for a long time, I just simply avoided it. The problem is when you're an independent consultant and that is where your clients are going to go to validate your experience, you really can't avoid it. And so about 2 years ago, I embarked on a strategy and plan to try and build that digital presence and use LinkedIn as a platform to talk about the things I like to talk about without falling into the trap of the humble brag and all the things I hated about it. And so I think I've kind of developed an approach. It definitely works for me. I can say I don't have the same pain points around like icky feeling so much as I used to have. And so what I'm going to share in the next pages is kind of how I did that. All right. So we've got lots to cover. Let's talk about what we're going to learn today. In the next 20 minutes, I want you to walk out of this video with a couple of things. 1, you need to understand that your profile is a positioning tool and how to create it. Okay. And there's some really simple things I think you just need to know and be aware of for you to dust this off and make it work for you. Right. 2, you need to understand that your visibility and how LinkedIn promotes your profile is really driven by an algorithm. And your job is to feed that machine, right? We're going to talk about that and my approach to that. Next, you want to make sure you're feeding that machine in the right way so the algorithm is seeing you as a contributor. This is really important. LinkedIn validates your presence and boosts people who are feeding the beast. Okay. It wants you to contribute. And so you must contribute. Okay. Not just you have to have the profile, table stakes, but then you have to also give the algorithm what it needs. And last, I'm going to share our best tools and templates and kind of the tips and tricks that have worked for me. All right. So as you walk away from this, I really hope you take away that consistency is really more important than perfection. And two, I want you to take away just some tidbits of where I'm seeing people and myself have some success. All right. And I'll just point one out here. Here's one of our community members, Terry. Terry is an independent consultant that helps small and medium-sized businesses prepare for exits. Terry utilizes LinkedIn's newsletter feature. And so he does this consistently. I think it's on a monthly basis. But what this does for Terry is it makes sure that I get an email from Terry with thought leadership content in my actual inbox, my personal inbox, not just LinkedIn, every month. And it gives him a recurring way to reach out to his clients. All right. One example, we'll show some more in a minute. All right. Now let's get started. I want to break your frame here a little bit. Standard thinking is that you have to have a LinkedIn profile because you just have to have it now. I want you to not think about it that way. I want you to think about your profile is really a tool to position you as a product. So if you are a consultant, you are a product, all right? And you are selling the product of you. And this requires a bit of a mindset shift, all right? You want your profile to reflect how others see you, not just as an online resume. Okay. You want to keep it very simple so they can consume and understand what you need them to understand. Everything in your profile should fit back to your product positioning. That's going to include your headline, your about section, all that stuff. We'll talk through that in just a moment. But all of those things need to ladder back to a simple set of messages that talk about you, the product. Okay? You also want to make sure that as you do this, you are prioritizing making things clear to the algorithm so that your profile and your content is featured, and that content is clickable once you discover it, and it will path back people to your profile. Okay. So that means a couple things. One, we mentioned the word simple. Two, I'll mention the word connected, right? Your messages must be connected and consistent. And three, you need to limit what you say here. Okay. I know that you can probably do a million things well. You need to pick the 3 to 5 things that you do, and those are going to be your key messages. All right. So you're going to pick 5 skills, you're going to pick 3 topics, and those are the content you're going to repeat and talk about over and over again. You need to eliminate everything that's unnecessary and not related to those core points. All right. So let's take a look at your profile. Here's the elements of a great profile. First, headline. Second, photo. Third, your about section. Fourth, your skills. And fifth, your recommendations. All right. Every message needs to be connected across these, but let's talk about what they're useful for. All right. First, your headline and your photo. Those are the 2 things that in people's feed, when they discover you, that's what they see first. Okay. So your headline needs to be really clickable. And we have, you can see Morgan here. I helped Morgan with her profile. So if you go and visit Morgan Miller and give her a follow on LinkedIn, she's a technology executive who spent some time with us as an interim leader with Keenan Reed Strategies. And now she's back in industry. She was making that transition. I helped her with her LinkedIn profile just based on what I had learned. You can see her headline is pretty clear and snappy: trajectory breaking growth leader, advisor, and CRO. Right. Before it was, I think, 2 long lines of things she wanted people to take away. But what we really needed people to know was what is core to what she does is she drives growth, and she does it through sales. She's also really passionate about helping people and cultivating her team. And so the advisor part there speaks to her efforts to cultivate her own team. And then she serves as an advisor to several female startup founders here in Austin. We wanted to highlight that. All right. Next, let's look at the photo. I'm giving you a tool here that I would take away. You can use Tiny Wow to change your background. But the photo, it's important to understand the psychology. One, people want to see faces. Okay, so your face needs to be prominently featured in your profile. Second, you need, obviously, I assume you all know you need a professional photo, but I would make sure that the background of that photo is clear and stands out. So you can see here with Morgan, we've done that in a rich blue. With Amelia, who is another consultant in our network, she does that with a really clean white, but no clutter, okay? If you were to make this great, what you would do is have your profile and eyes, you can almost look up and to the right. So if you look at my profile, you'll see my image is a bright yellow background, and I'm looking up and to the right. And why am I doing that? I did that purposefully. So as I pop up through someone's feed, that face and color gets recognized kind of internally with your lizard brain, right? People want to see a face. All right. About. Let's take a look at Amelia's about here. Now, Amelia is a great writer, but what's good here is that she's very clear about the 3 things that she brings. She also uses a great structure that's written in her own language, right? And this is how she talks. And I think lots of people write they try and write like a formal professional about section. And really what you're trying to do here is help have content that is ready when someone lands on your profile. So if you appear in the feed, people see your picture and your headline and they think, oh, and your content, oh, that's interesting. And they go to your page. The next thing they're going to look for is your about. And so your about needs to continue that attention and connection. I find it's better to be conversational here. I also would recommend you don't reinvent the wheel. So go find a top voice or an influencer or executive that you like on LinkedIn and just copy their format and adapt it to your own experience. Okay. That is what I did. Just truth be told. Okay. You don't need to be too creative to do this. It's art. We're not stealing. Right. Next, let's talk about skills and recommendations. As people continue to scroll into the feed, they're going to look at skills. Again, I think the thing you want to take is, oh, I can do this. And all of a sudden you've clicked 20 skills and it looks like you're all over the place. Don't do that. Click 5. Pick 5 skills that relate back to the value that you add. Okay. Make it very clear and connected to your headline and your about and the things that you do. All right. And then recommendations is an important validation point. So people will check and read your recommendations. Here, I think you can have few, not too many. They need to be pithy. And here, what I recommend is that you actually go, if you don't have great or current recommendations, you go on a recommendation campaign and you write recommendations for folks who have been close to your work. Maybe it's a boss, a client, a peer, etc. And you write them a recommendation and then you can ask them to reciprocate. And if you like, you can also offer to write it for them or provide them with points. And if you did that for 20 people, my guess is 10 people would probably be willing to reciprocate and you'd have that recommendation and the credibility there. Okay. So spend time on the profile. But the point here is use proven formulas, use connected messaging, and try and keep your messages pretty simple. All right. All right. Next, contribution. The whole purpose of LinkedIn is to try and drive and reward thoughtful professional communication. Okay. So there are ways you can do that. All right. I'm not going to spend time talking about what you should say. You should figure that out. But there are places where you can contribute that feed the algorithm. I think this boils down to 4. I only use 3. Okay. First is obviously comment on other people's posts, but they should be substantive. So you can see here a contact of mine put a post and then I write a substantive content. Truth be told, I do not work in financial services. This is a business school contact who asks me to help her and I ask her to help me. And so we do that. So you should do that, right? Like the algorithm doesn't really know. What they know is we are connected and we are having a substantive dialogue with each other's comment sections. Next, collaborative articles. This is kind of a hidden gem, all right? And we're going to attempt to do a demo here in a second if we have time. But collaborative articles are AI-driven thought pieces where LinkedIn frames a set of questions and then individuals can contribute their knowledge and experience to pieces of those questions. When you do that enough, LinkedIn will make you a top voice, but the important part is the algorithm recognizes when you do what they want you to do. So this is a pretty simple and easy way to contribute without having to think through what your content should be. They're basically feeding that to you. Next, I think between articles that you write and publish on the platform and newsletters that you write and disseminate through the platform, I would recommend here you pick one. Okay. It's a lot of work to do too. I personally do articles. We write the business breakdowns for the 2x2, our newsletter. All of those I repurpose as our articles on LinkedIn. We publish one a month, but over the course of a year, we'll have 12, right? And the purpose of those for me is I am trying to show that I am a frame breaking thinker. And those articles assess an interesting business model and break down an implication of that business model and give a recommendation in a way that's completely in my unique voice. So that is my unique thing, right? I publish it there. Like I said before, Terry has a newsletter. He disseminates thought leadership in a really easy way through the LinkedIn platform. I think this is one where I would advise people who are actively trying to develop business to invest the time. All right, shall we give collaborative articles a try? Now, we're going to try this. So we've put this link in the deck for you. We'll pop it into the notes in the event. Collaborative articles are a little hard to find. So just path directly from the link. But when you do that, this is what you see, okay? What you want to do first is find a topic that fits your expertise. Again, we're being consistent about our messaging. For me, that is management consulting. All right. So now, all the articles about management consulting. Let's click on this one. We're going to decide to contribute. What do you do if your analytical skills are put to the test? All right. I think you can see my screen now. Yes?
Yes.
So understand these types of questions. Now, if you saw, I clicked contribute, and then each question is broken down, you can see, into a set of topic breakouts. And you can choose to contribute to one part or to all of the parts, all right? So here, great. I would add, I prepared for my interviews using the book Case in Point, different than others. I practiced alone, often at the mirror. So I would not pick up the bad habits of others who were as inexperienced as me. All right. Great. And that is just that easy. Okay. All right. We can move to the next slide. And we're going to talk about consistency. So consistency is really important to just keep a drumbeat of your contributions. I'm going to admit that's really hard, especially when you're trying to balance multiple clients in your life. Here, I'm going to recommend a hack. I use a tool, a software tool called Taplio. I've given you a couple screenshots here. I'm going to be honest. Taplio is not cheap. I think we pay close to $700 a year, but here's what it does. It gives, first of all, it connects into your profile and gives you real data that you can use to see what posts are actually working. Okay. Because you want to do more of what's working. Next, and this is where it starts to save time and help with your consistency, is it looks for others who have similar backgrounds and messages to you, and it flashes to you their highest performing content. So I just find some of the hardest part of LinkedIn is like, what do I say? This is taking that away, and it's saying not only what do you say, but this is what others like you say and what performs well. And then it takes it a step further. It allows you to choose, and then through their integrated AI, it will rewrite a post and allow you to schedule it. So I always recommend you don't let the AI do all the work for you. And you can see what it generated for me. If you go back and look at my actual LinkedIn and my tone of voice, this does not fit, okay? But it probably saves me 20 minutes a post to understand what to talk about, give me a format and some ideas to talk it through, and then I can put it straight into my own voice. I think it is a hugely, hugely helpful tool, and probably the best AI tool that we use on our team. So we've given you a link here to go and access it, but I would definitely check it out if you're serious about ramping up your contributions. All right. If we go to the next, let's talk about what's working for me. So let's talk about what I did, actually. Let me give you a little bit of peek behind the curtain. I started this. I've done this in a couple different ways. So a couple of years ago, I hired someone to rewrite my profile. I paid him about $1,000. He wrote my profile and my resume in my about section. It was fine. I think it described what I did well. Boring. I got no bump from it. There's no content around it. It was just kind of boilerplate, professional, blah, blah, blah. All right. Then a couple of years later, I hired a consultant to help with building a personal brand. And I think they helped improve what I do. And they definitely had a better way of capturing my voice. But it was a little bit pricey for what I got. And if I'm being honest, I think they kind of cheapened and made the way that we presented me to be a little bit too transactional. We've recently taken myself back over, but hear me what I'm saying. We're taking myself back over. I really have shifted to thinking about my LinkedIn presence as the product of me, not me as a human. Okay. And I just feel like that was finally the piece that got me over the hump of hating the time I spent there so much, right? I see it as the character. I don't know if you guys are Beyonce fans, but it's like the Sasha Fierce version of Lauren, not like actually Lauren. So that's, I think, was the biggest mindset shift and the thing that got me over this hump. Once we got there, this is the 5 things that I think have helped us grow. I started with maybe 300 connections. Like I just never put any time into it. And now maybe we have like 1,500. So it's not like I got 10,000, but that's a pretty big jump. One, we focused on consistency, just posts 2 times a week for a year. And now about 3 months ago, we moved to 3 times a week. And now we're moving to 5 times a week, right? Just consistency, more at-bats gives you more opportunity. Next, talk like yourself. Personal tone works best. All the best performing posts are actually ones I wrote myself that are about personal or personal leaning topics presented in a professional way. Third, I would really strongly recommend that you don't just overly focus on posts in the feed. Really use the gamut of features that LinkedIn provides you in order to feed that algorithm. So again, I use articles, but collaborative articles, newsletter formats. Pick the one that works for you. The next thing I found is video isn't really widely used on the platform. So when you do use it, especially in a way that's more informal, it's really rewarded. I don't overuse video by any stretch. I probably should use it more, but it does boost the visibility of a given post pretty significantly. And then finally, don't be afraid to ask people to share your posts. I mentioned my friend who she and I go back and forth and ask each other to share. People join engagement pods, which are just groups of people on a Slack channel or a WhatsApp chain that agree to share each other's posts once a day. I would be happy to do that with someone if they're willing, but that's something people do. Don't be afraid to ask people to share. You need the boost. All right. And finally, we've provided some resources for you in addition to this video on the platform. We have a guide for LinkedIn headlines, some formatting guides for you, as well as some other tips and tricks for how to build your audience on LinkedIn. I'd recommend you check those out. And if anyone watching this has a need for some help creating their profile, I keep throwing, I've learned a lot on my own. I've done this for a couple of friends. I keep throwing around the idea of maybe we could productize this in some way. I've developed a method for how I think to do this in a way that works, that really gets the kind of personal, professional messaging connection. If anyone has any interest of that, just reach out to me and we can discuss what that might look like. I'm kind of throwing around the idea of productizing this for others. So if there's interest, let me know. And with that, I will close for the day. We will see you on the platform, and thank you for joining.